A few months ago, I gave you a first look at a brand new game that just got announced, Lost Rift. It's meant to be a PvP, PvE survival game with a little bit of an extraction twist. On one island, you build up your base. Don't have to worry about anyone raiding you or taking any of your loot. You simply go out, explore, find weapons, gear, and craft your own as you build up a little home for yourself. With dodos, hyenas, and I was presuming going to be a lot more maybe geared towards dinosaurs. The art style was quite eclectic with lots of armour and weapons from all sorts of different genres and eras. And then when you were ready, you would go to the other islands and take on PvE enemies as well as actually other players to get better loot and gear and hopefully make it back without dying and losing it all. But having played the first alpha, which was allowed to be put out publicly, I was pretty disappointed last night. So let's go through what the game currently has and what it doesn't, and why I'm really kind of not giving this one much more of a chance unless it really has significant improvements. Yes, it's an alpha, and alphas are all about getting feedback, showing works in progress. But there are definitely levels in what you show and what you don't show, or just basically releasing it too soon. And that is the overriding conclusion I've reached, that Lost Rift has been revealed way too soon, with a whole bunch of the island and blocking just basically being the default textures. Some of the tutorial steps and how you craft are just not clear at all, leaving me to think the game was actually bugged for about 20 minutes. And the world in the actual gameplay right now is just so basic. So, some added context before everyone starts raging at me. Oh, you're not giving them a fair chance. This is clearly just an alpha. They're going to be improving loads of stuff. Absolutely sure. But I think a company with the pedigree that these devs have really shouldn't be needing to release this so early. Certainly not publicly. What I played last night was something that you would show to the first batch of testers that you're bringing in a private playtest. The devs for this new game are the studio that brought you, years ago, Bulletstorm. Had a fantastic shooting mechanic where you could pull enemies with a special whip, and you really had to apply some skill to headshots where it would double and multiply the amount of experience you'd get, and stuff like that would really just enhance the gameplay instead of just being a completely mindless shooter. It had tons of traversal options, something we hadn't really seen in shooters for a while. A bit of a cult classic, but absolutely a great game, even if it was somewhat unfairly labelled a Gears of War clone. Although to be fair, the voice acting and the actual character models do definitely remind me of them. The devs People Can Fly actually did make a Gears of War game. They were responsible for one of the smaller offshoots, Judgment, which didn't really fare that well compared to the rest of the series, but by then things were moving on and the Gears of War franchise was getting very stale. And more recently, Outriders, the looter shooter that kind of had a bit of a rough reception and I think ended up pretty much dying. They're currently back supporting Gears of War, the next installment, with the Coalition, and also working on a remaster or a reboot of their own game, Painkiller, or doing it for someone else. So this is maybe a small studio thing. It's like a small tiny team working potentially on Lost Rift. So they've got a history over 15 years. They've had ups and downs where they've had to downsize and upsize, and again, the way that they're supporting other games makes me feel like they really desperately need something of their own. So is Lost Rift gonna do it? Maybe not, no, as they are hopping on, pretty late by now, also the Extraction bandwagon. But it just doesn't seem much here yet, at least anyway. Definitely some potential with the base building aspects, which is pretty different, unique from any other Extraction game. And I would expect and hope that the shooting would be amazing given their history. But right now, the game is just so basic. Pick up sticks, pick up stones, go ahead and chop trees, maybe some flowers, in an incredibly small inventory space that has got the same grid system as you've seen in games like DayZ and Tarkov, where items need to really fit within, not just simply chucked into any square. The menus were extremely basic, the UI was too, and this is okay because the art style is relatively simple. It's not necessarily going for photorealism, there is a kind of drawn style with this, and I quite like that. But extremely basic icons, which apparently they used AI to generate for some of this stuff, for food, stamina, and basically making sure you've got enough health. I ran around starting out in the dark, so it was pretty hard to see, with no way to make a torch as that wasn't immediately clear. And maybe the only real cool thing in the first 10-15 minutes was that lightning could hit at various points and do damage to you if you wasn't paying attention. Eventually I found a cave with some loot and a gun, so that was pretty handy, and I also killed my first dodo, with no reactions unless I got directly right in front of it. So there will be certain pieces of loot and gear that you'll be able to find on the starting island, and you'll come across an NPC that will eventually teach you a few things, setting you up for a tutorial. But I was amazed to see this kind of thing, completely not made textures, and this was all over the game. I know how hard it is to make games. I promise you, I've covered so many, I've spoken to so many devs and gave them so much feedback. The biggest issue I have is first impressions count, and if players see this kind of stuff, even if it's labelled an alpha nowadays, they're pretty much going to just say, whoa, this game is nowhere near ready, and might not even give it a second chance once it's actually going to arrive. After that I went and hopped on a zipline, and again this is another little cool feature to get around the map. But at the moment, it doesn't look like there's any kind of vehicles, no boats or maybe skimmers, no other way to get around. It's simply just on foot as you explore this small, again, very basic island with not many resources. A few coconuts to eat, some enemies to kill like the dodos, but it was all kind of just so basic. With apparently the only danger so far being some hyenas, which we'll take a look at in a while. It looks like eventually you'll have to find 4 different NPCs that you can actually bring back to you and have as part of your hub world, I'm presuming, to trade with and maybe access new materials or recipes. My camera was stuck while trying to talk to this NPC, so I couldn't look at him in the face, as it rattled off some really basic mission quest stuff that was pretty much the tutorial or stuff I'd already just done. Luckily though, the game did recognise that, so I didn't have to repeat any steps. Another annoying feature straight away was stuff like being able to sort the inventory with a grid system where you have to have the space for the size of the gun so it can actually fit in your very limited backpack. There was no clear guide to say, yep, you've got to place a bedroll on a foundation. In fact, there wasn't any foundations, just the ceiling pieces, and the building system's probably the most basic I've seen in a survival game in a long time. It honestly felt like I was playing a tech demo that they'd be taking to hopefully get some investment. Some sort of campfire structure that you would place, I'm guessing, to claim this part of the land. Well, it does seem like these little servers or these islands are strictly yours alone, and it's only when you go to the actual PvP islands that you will encounter other players unless you invite your friends in. It does look like you can have up to 4 players on one island playing together, but I don't know how that would actually work in terms of other players building their bases. Does it all stay open when one person leaves? And there didn't seem to be any real mechanism to actually invite friends. Only when you left the PvP island would you then be able to actually team up with people. And yeah, the island, it looks tropical, sure. It kind of looks nice in some parts, but a lot of it just is these large rocks and boulders. Although I didn't really explore the full spread and width of it, but I definitely just felt, yeah, again, I'm going to keep using the word basic. If anyone's played Vigor, you'll know how that game ran. You had a special little house hut that you could upgrade over time, unlock new places to put all your gear and loot, and pretty much that was your safe haven as you went and explored the actual PvE, PvP parts of the world. So this has been done before, but with the advent of base building, it could be something great. If they can add a lot more, obviously, tiers of building, more unique shapes, and I'm guessing really more ways that you can play the game a little bit more PvE without always having to resort to going to the PvP island. Because quite frankly, the extraction mechanics are so overplayed, there's so many big games out there already, I just can't see this game surviving on its own if that's going to be the main focus. Draw in some survival fans with activities that they can partake in, and then having the PvP stuff as really an option or to maybe alleviate the grind for certain things, that is something definitely people can gel with. I'll show it in a bit, but right now I just don't think the actual PvP extraction part is strong enough to be the main hook of the game. You can see the base building here. You set up basically the frames and then you fill them in by smacking away with your hammer. It took me ages to work out how to make a campfire because there was no real clear path using the controller, at least, until I realised that it needed resin, and of course because my inventory had been full so quickly I hadn't picked any up when I was chopping some of the trees. I don't know too many games that you need resin to make just a simple campfire out of stones and wood. But eventually I got some food on the go, giving me the very basics of health over time and some food to stop my bar dying and maybe some buff to help aim down my sights a bit better. I finally placed down the crafting bench, and again, very basic, simple stuff you've seen a billion times before. I could now craft some twine and string, pickaxe, and now I could actually craft a torch. Got myself a bow together and then I went out exploring and took on what seemingly was the only real threat on the island, some hyenas. Apparently a bow is better than a gun, as it took multiple shots with a gun to kill a hyena, yet it was literally like only 2 or 3 with a bow. With a lot of these caves being a danger point where you'd find a lot of these creatures, and obviously you'd be able to harvest and kill them to get some of the hide. I was then tasked with finding a missing person, and this is the map. Like literally, this is the map they left, like it was on some sort of big massive artboard. And this is why I just feel like the game is crazily too early being revealed. I thought maybe it's going to get a bit better now. I'm going to find this bunker and go into like a facility and it's going to have lots more dangers or resources together. Turns out this was nothing but a cupboard with a shelving unit and a door that wouldn't open for now. Then it took me another 5 minutes to realise why I couldn't pick up the gun, because obviously I didn't have space, but it mattered how much of the grid space you were leaving. No auto sort functionality, literally taking advantage from other games, but without the ability to rotate stuff. Honestly, if this game had come from a brand new developer and I'd seen them working on this as a small tiny team, I could understand why they're showing it maybe like this, or why they're just trying to drum up some interest. And maybe I really should look at it like that, like I think about other games like Grounded, which had a really small team on it and actually produced amazing results, even though they're part of a bigger company and a bigger huge corporation. But I just can't get over the fact that nothing here is really interesting so far about this PvE experience, and it's not even done well, which could mitigate it being just the same old stuff. So maybe the extraction mechanics are really where it's at, and I shouldn't really be worried too much or paying as much attention to the other stuff. So this place definitely had a lot more objectives, or maybe POIs, to go and explore, and I encountered my first actual enemy. But even with a gun, this bot couldn't really do much damage from that distance, yet I was able to Legolas with my bow and kill him. Enemies will have different loot that you can obviously take, with a lot of cosmetic armor pieces or clothing pieces that you could utilise or swap out if you really wanted to. But remember, if you die, you lose absolutely everything. More greyed out basic textures for a lot of these buildings, and I was faced with even more loot that I could go and grab, but obviously in my very limited space. The shooting didn't feel awful. In fact, I would say that's probably obviously its best quality right now, but it's nowhere near on par with their previous games. There's no hints that you'd be able to customise weapons or make them more unique. I'm guessing it's going to be like the Fortnite rare loot kind of vibe, where you find a better gun simply by some sort of rarity. Melee with an axe is definitely not the one, but again, I didn't see any evidence that there was going to be a big choice in other pieces of weapons that you could use, like spears or maybe knives, swords. As the sun finally came up, I again thought I was doing pretty good, finally taking out some of these guys, and then of course I did end up getting killed, seemingly by an actual player. The AI though for this did seem like it was trying to strafe around, and it wasn't necessarily just running straight for me. I kind of like that, I thought that was good. Trying to get an angle on me felt pretty realistic, but they've got worse aim than any stormtrooper you've ever met. Almost as bad as mine. I'd run out of arrows and shots, so I decided to finish this guy for an axe, and apparently, like I said, I think it was a player, but it could easily have been actually a PvE enemy, as they didn't come over to loot my body, but I was amazed how my health had gone down so much in just one shot. I'd been shot a bunch of times by the other enemies and it done moderate damage for sure, but this one took nearly 3/4 of my health in one go. In a down state but not able to revive, yeah, I was pretty much toast. When I went into view mode afterwards, it was following some other players that didn't seem to be anywhere close to me at all, with, yeah, this. You couldn't really see anything at all, as there was some sort of glitch. Now this is the kind of stuff I do expect in alphas and betas. I really am not asking for a perfect game here, but what I am expecting, if you're trying to make a survival game, or an extraction game especially, it's really got to be different and unique, and it's got to be in a great state to show to the world. Kudos for having open development and just being like, here we are, this is what we've got at the moment, we just want some feedback and stuff. It really does feel like they were just pushing this out to hopefully get some interest from a publisher or an investor maybe. Can be the only reason why they'd be showing stuff so early, so underdeveloped. All that said, I would be interested to check out more of a fuller experience, especially this extraction style, to give it a bit more of a fair shot. If the loot is interesting and it makes you feel more powerful and gives you big reasons to obviously try and escape with something rare that you found, and maybe some of the POIs have got some sort of puzzle elements or stuff to do rather than just simply loot corpses and boxes, then yeah, I'll give it a short check out in the future. But the survival elements at the moment are just doing nothing you don't see or could have better in games like Stranded Deep or Green Hell. I kind of get what they're trying to do, but they're just not making it interesting enough in either. Of course, agree, disagree, let me know what you think about Lost Rift. Have I been too harsh? Is this the kind of game you could get behind? Do you like the idea of this? Let me know in the comment section, and I guess I'll keep you guys at least up to date with its release date, and like I said, maybe I'll give it another check when it's really here for early access. Until next time, Ratbags, I'll catch you later.